Eric Owens, and I'm the Associate Director of the Boise Center for Religion and American Public Life, and we are one of the conveners of the event tonight. We have a number of other terrific sponsors who have made this happen. Most importantly, the United States Agency for International Development, or USAID, USAID, however you want to call it, and two terrific staffers from USAID will be here in just a second to speak with you. Amy Harris, a VC grad from 2011, and Christy Vilsack, who is special advisor to the director or the administrator of USAID. We're also co-sponsored by several parts of Boston College beyond the Boise Center. The Lynch School of Education has generously pitched in to make this possible. The Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences, the School of Social Work, and we just had a nice meeting with the Dean of the School of Nursing, who is also contributing to make this a great event. And there should have been two people here from the nursing school. Are you here? Two students? One at least? Two? Terrific. So I talked to Dean Gennaro, and she would love to talk to you both about this event afterwards. Seriously, she wants to follow up to see that this can be replicated in the nursing school in a particular way. I told her I'd track down your email addresses, but it would be easier just to have you send her an email. Can you guys do that and follow up with her? Thank you so much. We have a really exciting afternoon, evening for you. And we have to admit at the outset that this is a bit of an experiment. It's a pilot program. The folks from USAID have been doing this at maybe 7 or 8 universities around the country. And we're still figuring out what works great and what locales and context is going to be great. And so we're going to be a little loose with how things work. And I hope that you'll feel not just loose but relaxed as well. Because it's not just an experiment, it's a joyful experiment. We all could use a little bit of joy in the midst of some pretty heated politics and culture over the past 2 years, but week in particular, and there's nothing quite like shaking that off and finding something inside of yourself that's meaningful and joyful to contribute to the world in a positive way. And that's what we're going to do here tonight. The first 10 minutes or so, Amy and Christy will be talking about USAID, and then we'll have a 30 or so minute presentation by two world-class children's book authors and illustrators, Peter Reynolds and Paul Reynolds. And then we'll have a burst of creativity to work together on a variety of things. And then Amy will talk to you a bit about the software you'll be using to put these into books. And then we'll reconvene at the end of the evening to talk about what the heck just happened. So we've got a lot happening. Like I said, feel free to get drinks and things like that along the way. But I'd like to begin by welcoming Amy Harris and Christy Vilsack and thanking you so much for being a part of Boston College. This 2-day visit of yours has been such a terrific learning experience for me, and I can't wait to share that with the rest of the people.
Thanks. Thanks, Eric, and thanks, Peter and Paul, for being here, and for all of you, because you're on your own time now. It's the end of the day, and we're all gathered here to work collectively together. But I want to explain to you a little bit about how we got into this room together. And I've been a teacher for over 44 years. I work domestically. Now I work internationally at the U.S. Agency for International Development. And I've got to tell you, when I walked in the door, I didn't quite know what it was. I knew that our foreign policy in the United States involved the Defense Department. That's the defense, the D for diplomacy at the State Department. But I didn't quite know what USAID was. So I just wanted to know if any of you have ever had any connection with the U.S. Agency for International Development. Have you ever heard of it? Do you know anything at all about it that you might just mention to us to give us an idea of what you know as an audience before we go forward? Anybody have any connection to USAID? Just like me when I walked in the door. Yes, thank you. What?
So before I became a teacher, I actually used to work in international development.
Okay. So you professionally are connected.
Some of our programs were funded by USAID.
Okay. Anybody else? So we are the third D of our foreign policy in this country, and that's development. And what most people sort of know about us is that when there's a catastrophe, when something bad happens in the world, then the U.S. government shows up with USAID. It's USAID, U.S. Agency for International Development. It's aid from the American people. So you see the hands clasped together. It's the American people giving to the world, and we show up often with food. So our agency, when there's an earthquake in Nepal or a hurricane someplace, when people are at war, then we show up to help stabilize folks in that particular context. We work in education, but we work in water, we work in climate change, we work in global health, we work in animal trafficking and human trafficking, everything that you can possibly imagine that has to do with development and helping people in developing countries, because most of the places where we work, people are making less than $1.25 a day. So I want to start with that part. That's our agency as a whole. But within that agency, we are an education office. And so with all of those other global problems out there, we are charged with figuring out what we can do for education in the developing world, so we can help people move from poverty, because it's in all of our best interests to make sure that people move from making $1.25 a day to becoming more prosperous. It's in our best interests for prosperity and also for our own security, but also because we have big hearts. So in education, we focus on 3 huge problems, really 4 huge problems. We know that 250 million children don't know how to read around the world, either because they don't have access to an education, or they have access but they don't have teachers who know how to teach them to read, or they don't have governments to support them. We're also working to make sure that youth, defined from 10 to 24, 10 to 30, get their first job and they're able to keep it so they can become responsible members of their communities. There are youth villages in places like Central America, in Vietnam, in Jordan. We need to make sure people have the skills that they need in order to get and keep jobs. We also work, as I said, the hallmark of our agency is really in humanitarian crises, and we go into countries like South Sudan, like Nigeria, like DRC. Nigeria has more kids out of school than any other country in the world. Afghanistan, Pakistan, Haiti, Nepal. In those contexts, we're working to make sure that children simply have access to an education, that we can stabilize them if they're traumatized so that they can learn. And that's where we work primarily with girls, and getting girls into school, making sure that they get a chance to go not just to primary school, but on to what we call middle school and secondary school, and hopefully college in the end, and also kids with disabilities. And then last, we work in higher education. So we want to make sure that we strengthen institutions around the world for higher education, so people have opportunities for college and university, but we also are engaging students in this country and faculties in this country on college campuses to help us solve development problems. So now if we take it down one more level, today we're not going to talk about those things so much, as we're going to concentrate on one of our major problems, which is the 250 million children who can't read around the world. So now we have to solve that problem. And we are training teachers. We have created an assessment called EGRA that is helping us evaluate how well children read in the 47 to 50 countries where we work around the world. And we also are creating textbooks in local languages, because we know from our research that children need to learn to read in the language they were born hearing their mothers sing to them, the language of the playground or mother tongue. So we're creating the textbooks in those languages, but you all know, everybody in this room learned to read with a textbook, with a trained teacher, but we all learned to read because we had books to practice with. And what we don't have, we have all those other pieces. We've got the data to show that we're actually making a difference in all these countries. But children can't become fluent and can't then comprehend if they don't have books to practice. So all the books that you read in kindergarten, first, second, third grade, or that were read to you, are the kinds of books that just don't exist in these languages around the world. And so they're books that look like this, and these are the kinds of books that we're creating. They don't have to be beautiful library books, as much as we'd love to do that, and maybe someday we will. But we simply need, and those of you in the back of the room, some of you here who are teachers know, we need decodable and level books. We don't have them. So what we do now have is a little piece of magic. This is the Bloom software. This is what you're going to be using today. And with this, you can put this into any computer in the world. And within 20 minutes, as Amy will show you later, any one of you can be writing these books in any of the languages in the world. So this is what we're using today, and we hope to engage all of you in the writing of books. And I'm going to turn it over to Amy to talk a little bit about what that means on a college campus. So we at USAID are creating a global book alliance that will involve pretty much every educator in the world, every education company in the world, places like Scholastic and Pearson. It'll involve almost every technology company in the world. It'll involve most of the governments of the world. It will involve just about anybody in the education sector, and it's going to take a long time to put this all together, to figure out how to write the books, how to publish the books, how to cost effectively publish the books, how to put them in our digital library on the cloud, how to download them into computers in countries all over the world, and then how to print them and distribute them so that they're in the hands of kids and teachers. So that's a huge undertaking, and it's going to take a long time. But we think that we can start right now in places like this, engaging each of you as individuals. So even though that's a huge problem to solve, we really believe that it starts right here, and it starts with each one of us. And before we leave today, that all of you will be making a difference and helping us solve this huge global problem by learning how to use the software. So Amy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Christy.
Sure.
So why are we at Boston College? One, I'm a graduate from here. I graduated in 2011 from A&S. Two, I'm a former student of Eric's, and he graciously, with the help of the Boise Center and all the sponsors here, are helping us put on this event. Three, because as Christy mentioned, this is part of something much bigger than any of us in a room, much bigger than Boston College, much bigger than USAID. This is part of a global initiative that we're calling the Global Book Alliance. That involves all of the partners that Christy just talked about, other donor agencies, bilateral, multilaterals, NGOs, university communities. But with our little piece of magic, our Bloom software, we want to use you all. We see your strengths here. And as a graduate of this school, I've been talking Christy's ear off for quite a while because I so firmly believe that this place is a bit of magic itself, and I'm pretty darn convinced that if we're able to plant a seed tonight to get the nursing students and the Lynch students and the A&S students, business students if they're in the room, but if we can get you all together to start thinking creatively, thinking beyond your schools, beyond your classes. I know you all have networks on this campus and beyond, which is why I put together this handbook that is just a very simple toolkit, not meant to be prescriptive at all, but meant to sort of guide you through the process of how it might look like to involve various community partners, either within the BC community or beyond. And I see this as being of value because for all of your peers, classmates who maybe weren't able to attend tonight, take this with you. There's copies on the back. We can also distribute electronic copies, and it will be soon posted online, because we want to use you to help us address problems much bigger than ourselves, and the social justice mission of Boston College, which is so very pervasive on this community, I think, and I deeply believe, has the power to do some good. So thanks for letting us be here. I'm looking forward to the rest of the evening. And with that, I will turn it on to our world-class authors who are going to lead us through. Oh, one last thing, if I can do the quick shameless plug for our hashtags that we decided on right before this. In light of International Education Week, I believe there's been many events on campus, and they're using the hashtag IEW 2016, or we're going to go with Stories That Matter 2016.
Stories that move.
Stories that move, sorry. Stories That Move 2016. Christy's got it, Christy Vilsack, at Christy Vilsack, and at USAID Education too. So if you guys are on your devices, tweet at us.
All right, thank you.
So awesome to be here. I'm going to welcome my twin brother Peter to Boston College because I graduated. So I'm a BC alum, 82. And I've actually been coming to campus for the last 27 years to teach. So in this building, right down in TV production. So
when I was attending mass art at the time when Paul was here, so I was
and we didn't have a cafeteria at the time, so I would take the tea out here because you guys had good food. So I knew the cafeteria. What was it called back then? What was that?
Wow, this
McElroy. Right? I don't know what it's called. Still the same?
Still
Yeah,
the
still very much the same. I fed Peter a lot of food there. Yeah. So, I don't know if the food is it good still? It's okay.
world class. Yeah.
That might inspire a story. Right? But
So-
it is awesome,
yeah.
and I'm going to let Paul speak first because Paul's my big brother. He's 14 minutes older than me. And do we have any twins out there? Wow, that's actually pretty good. Yeah. So twin power. We highly recommend being twins because if you plan on doing a lot in your life, right, it's always good to have two of you, right? And we definitely, I think maybe because there were two of us and we're both really interested in the same things, I think we somewhere along the line we're like, wow, this is a good thing, right, to be a twin.
yeah.
So yeah.
In fact, there's a picture of us as twins. And that's our incubator, or one of them. We were born in Toronto, Canada. Much to the surprise of my mother, who thought she was having one baby. In April, on her birthday, March 15th, the doctor did the 8-month checkup and said, Mrs. Reynolds, you're very large for 8 months. We might have the date wrong because you're not due until next month. They did the test and go home. She was celebrating a birthday. The call came in. Mrs. Reynolds, I hope you're sitting down because next month you're not having one baby, you're having 2 babies. And she thought that was very, very funny. So she started laughing and laughing and laughing. And of course, you know what happened. She went into labor and we were born. So that's us. And we've been hanging out ever since. Definitely, it's really cool to have a twin, as Pete says, if you don't have one, find one. And another definition of twin is critical friend, right? If you can find your critical friend, the person who will love you and has your back no matter what, and you can float the craziest ideas, and they can even help find, give you some perspective without shooting it down. Find your twin and stick with them. We did. It's been pretty cool because we've had a pretty neat journey together, and we're going to be talking a little bit about this. We liked working with each other so much. We actually started a company together called FableVision, and FableVision is celebrating 20 years. This Friday, actually. But I think I have a slide for that for you. Just a little bit about FableVision. So we work with really the best in class folks, organizations that are moving the world to a better place in some way: education, wellness, sustainability, environment. Jim Henson Productions, PBS, National Geographic, Smithsonian, National Academy of Sciences. We also work with public school systems all across the country because we actually want to give back in the same way that creative educators helped us get to where we are and discern our gifts, talents, strengths to move the world a better place. We have created a whole set of software tools that we'll talk about. So we're at top floor of the Children's Museum with Jumpstart and Citizen Schools. Folks here might have heard about them. So we're on the top floor making all sorts of...
We have about 40 artists, writers, programmers, reporting people, educators, researchers, all working together to do all this cool stuff. And we are always looking for interns, and we're also looking to hire creative people who want to make the world a better place. So if that's you, stay in touch.
So it also houses the Reynolds Center for Teaching, Learning, and Creativity, reynoldstlc.org. That's our nonprofit group where we do a lot of research prototyping, designing new tools that can cause learning in more creative ways, supporting teachers and kids. This is your ticket to the party on Friday. FYI, you are actually all invited. If you go to FableVisionStudios.com and just search for the party information, it's probably on there somewhere. So yes, you are actually invited. And I think, okay. So, right, most people get jobs. You're lucky if you get your dream job. Right? Do what you love and love what you do. I love being a proof point that it's possible. When I graduated from BC, I think I was petrified of heading into the world. Any seniors here? Any seniors? Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Graduate students? How many graduate students? We have grad students? Yeah. Awesome. So you've already been out in the world and back, most likely. So it's possible, right, to do this. And the fact that you were all sitting here in a storytelling workshop in the Lynch School of Education is pretty cool, because that's very much what FableVision does. At the center of everything we do, although we have coders and animators and designers, the center of what we do is storytelling. So we're going to continue talking about that in different ways tonight. And the cool thing is, you guys are wild and crazy and brave enough to actually come and write stories. Who here feels 100% confident in that you're going to come out with the stories? Who feels very, who feels scared about this? Okay, good, and it's okay, right? I flew by the slide right at the beginning that said "Create Bravely," and this is a poster you all get to walk away with. I think I have enough copies. It's actually, these two words are really important for us. To create is really important. Your originality, your creation will only happen though if you are brave enough to do it, right? And for so many reasons, we shut that creativity down. And we know that you guys showed up, so we don't have to worry about you guys at all. So at FableVision, we talk about stories that matter and stories that move. We're in a 200-year mission to create and share positive media storytelling technology that moves the world to a better place. So we partner with all sorts of awesome organizations that are doing good work, and they just happen to know that some blend of sometimes no tech, maybe it's just a book, and sometimes it's high tech. It's a massive multiplayer game. We did something with this State Department teaching kids in China English and kids in America Chinese through the power of a multiplayer online game. And we also make creativity maker products. For school, so digital fabrication, so kids can make things, make animations with Animation Edge, and get published, which gives you all the tools you need in the classroom to turn your classroom into a publishing company. And we were talking that it looks like there's maybe some intersection with Bloom, because it'd be cool if all these kids are actually having their books get translated into multiple languages. How cool is that? So it's cool that we have our VC doc connecting too to make all this happen. And of course, then there are the core of many of the stories come out of Peter's library and covering all sorts of themes: confidence, creativity, balance, bravery, empathy, joy, potential. This is Peter's new book called Water Princess, and that might be just fun to just do a little snippet on it.
Yeah, this just came out in September. I was at the Women in the World Conference in New York City. Amazing if you ever get a chance to go. I think Tom Hanks and I were the only men there. It's a gathering of powerful women who believed that they could change the world. And they were busy doing it and sharing what they were doing and also what they were thinking of doing. So I got introduced to a woman named Georgie Badiel, and she's from Burkina Faso. And she's a very successful model. And she said to me, she said, I have done really well in New York. I have a great apartment and I love my life. But in my village, we still don't have water. And just as I had to walk miles every day with my mother, my grandmother, there are still girls in our village that have to put the pot in their head and walk for miles. And she said, I want to do something about it. I want to build a well bring water to my village. I want to write a story that would raise money and awareness about the issue. So she speaks French, that's her first language, and when she wrote the story down, and it wasn't quite working, so I said, I'm going to dot connect to a poet friend of mine, Susan Verde, in New York City. And I said, just meet and see if something clicks. Well, they became fast friends, and Susan wrote a beautiful poem channeled Georgie's amazing story. So it's based on the true story of her as a child. And the exciting thing is that Putnam saw the project and said, we want to publish it. And so the advance already has gone to build the first well in her village in Burkina Faso. So it's going to continue to do good work. And so that's just one example of how you can have a mission and a passion and say, I want to change the world. And doing it by yourself, it's almost impossible. So you do have to find your network of talent and resources and the people that know how to spread the word. It does take a village, and that's what's cool about tonight, is that we have this amazing village of storytellers. And for those of you who are feeling excited about it, but maybe a little bit nervous, we have some things in store to inspire you.
And just as a little editorial note, Susan Verity was one of Peter's students. Peter teaches a week-long writing workshop at the Southampton Children's Literature Conference. Julie Andrews' daughter, Emma
Walton Hamilton.
Runs it, and a group of aspiring children's book writers, unpublished, get to hang out with a published author. Peter is one of a bunch of the faculty every year, and Susan was one of Peter's students. And she was a teacher. And she just was brave enough to go and take this course, and it literally changed her life, because at the end of the conference, Peter loved her work so much, he introduced Susan to our agent at Pittman Properties in New York, and she landed a 3-book deal within a month. So, all right, so dare to dream, and it actually is possible.
And what we do in that week in the Hamptons, which if you get a chance to do, and they do have scholarships too, so hit them up for those scholarships. We're going to try to squeeze it into, we have 8 hours tonight, right?
Yeah.
Until 2 a.m. 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Well, they said the sleeping bags are coming.
Right.
So I think it's up all night.
But we are going to kind of squeeze, we're going to do a condensed version and give you some tips and tricks on how to extract that amazing, fabulous story that will change the world. So
there are books, right? Some of you may be an aspiring book storyteller, but there are other ways to tell stories as well. In FableVision, we create animated films. So this is a 3-minute animated film that was the output of a conversation we had with a woman named Denise Resnick at the Southwest Autism Research Center, SARC. And she is a mom with a child on the autism spectrum, severely affected, and she raised $22 million to build a center, and her focus is on trying to support teachers and parents and siblings who have kids in their lives who are on the spectrum. So she sent us 3 binders of a program that she runs called the Friends Program, and it's an acronym for something really long, and it's 3 binders of information. And I said, this is awesome, Denise, but can you just write me a 1-page letter of why it matters? Not what the details are, but what's the essence of what you're trying to get across. And she wrote this amazing letter, very, very touching letter to us. And what you will see here is an animated film that is actually, all the keyframes of Peter's art actually were done during the lunch where I read Denise's letter. And there are components of the letter that are in this. So that story was picked up by Simon & Schuster as a book. So, and interesting, we don't have time to go into that, but the publisher actually wanted words with it. So that was an interesting evolution of the book. Interesting for kids to compare the film and the book.
Which is kind of interesting because like we told the story with no words, which actually makes it actually very universal. And so the challenge for us is to say, well, if we're also trying to teach kids to read, you know, can you tell a universal story, but can you sprinkle it with some words? And that's what Simon & Schuster asked me to do. And I said, well, let me think about it. It took me a year, and finally, on a beautiful spring day, I sat down and I wrote a poem to go along with that. So it's now a physical book with words. And so your idea might just start out as a film, right? With no words, and let the words come later. But the big message we want to convey tonight is it's about the idea and the mission of your story.
So story is really important to us. We'll keep coming back to it. Being education folks, you probably all know about Jerome Bruner, Dr. Jerome Bruner, cognitive psychologist, right? I quote him all the time because he talks a lot about the power of narrative and learning, right? The fact that his book, Actual Minds, Possible Worlds, right, Possible Worlds, Actual Minds. The idea that when you go into a story, you enter a story, it's a possible world. And you get to live the joy or the bravery or the courage or the despair of the characters, and you come back out. And it's very hard not to have transference. You transfer it back to your actual mind. So I'm totally oversimplifying that, but I reached out to him one afternoon 2 years ago to see if we, number one, if he was still alive. He emailed me back. He was 99 when he emailed me back, and still working at NYU. And he's like, delighted to get your email, would love to get together, post haste, And I'm thinking, post haste, yes, 99. And that Wednesday we actually spent 2 hours with him, and Peter drew with him, and we read storybooks, and he at some point he told Peter, so what are you doing next? And Peter's like, oh, well, we're going to go back to the hotel, and we go to the BEA, the Book Expo, and then Jerry said, Peter, what are you doing next? It was like the Yoda moment. And he's like, I have spent my life doing this research. Your mission is to bring it to the schoolhouse, which is just really lovely. And I just love that quote. Right? Great narrative is an invitation to problem finding, not a lesson in problem solving. It is deeply about plight, about the road, rather than the end to which it leads. Metaphorically rich, morally instructive narratives teach us who we are and who we can become. All these years that we've been doing storytelling, it's just amazing how transformational the power of story is. One of those transformational stories is The Dot. Anybody familiar with The Dot? Yes. Would you like to read The Dot? Anybody want a story time? Story time? The author actually read it to you?
I can do that.
Do you want to switch out?
Sure.
Switch screens?
Yeah.
Here we go.
You can just do it here.
Oh, yes. Oh, right. We have
Press number 2.
our cool technology.
Boom.
Look at that. Eric, you're awesome. Let's hear it for Eric.
All right. Yeah.
Excellent. We brought the best folks in here. The Big Screen Books is just that's our software platform.
Yeah.
It's a really a fun way, easy way to help teachers read these books on big screens on whiteboards. Yep. At FableVision Learning.
No, I don't. I'm the audio. Yes.
Okay.
Paul, do you want
Oh,
to
I
just hit
I'll
the
try. Sure.
just hit the drive? Yeah. The dots. The Dot by me. Art class was over, but Vashti sat glued to her chair. Her paper was empty. Vashti's teacher leaned over the blank paper. Ah, a polar bear in a snowstorm, she said. Very funny, said Vashti. I just can't draw. Oops.
Can I just do it?
Oh yes, you can do that. So say yes.
Yes.
All right. I just can't draw. Her teacher smiled. Just make a mark and see where it takes you. Vashti grabbed a marker and she gave the paper a good, strong jab. There. Her teacher picked up the paper and studied it carefully. She pushed the paper toward Vashti and quietly said, "Now, sign it." Vashti thought for a moment. Well, maybe I can't draw, but I can sign my name. The next week when Vashti walked into art class, she was surprised to see what was hanging above her teacher's desk. It was the little dot she had drawn. Her dot, all framed in swirly gold. I could make a better dot than that. She opened her never-before-used set of watercolors and set to work. Vashti painted and painted a yellow dot, a green dot, a red dot, a blue dot. She mixed the blue mixed with the yellow. She discovered that she could make a green dot. Vashti kept experimenting. Lots of little dots in many colors. If I could make little dots, I could make big dots too. Vashti splashed her colors with a bigger brush on bigger paper to make even bigger dots. Vashti even made a dot by not painting a dot. At the school art show a few weeks later, Vashti's many dots made quite a splash. Vashti noticed a little boy gazing up at her. "You're a really great artist. I wish I could draw," he said. "I bet you can," said Vashti. "Me? No, not me. I can't draw a straight line with a ruler." Vashti smiled. She handed the boy a blank sheet of paper. "Show me." The boy's pencil shook as he drew his line. Vashti stared at the boy's squiggle. And then she said, "Please, sign it." And that is dedicated to Mr. Matson, my 7th grade math teacher, who dared me to make my mark. The cool thing with your book, and you'll be able to dedicate your book to somebody, you can start thinking about who that person's going to be. But I was thinking I wanted to say thank you. I mean, this book is about art and creativity and bravery and sharing and all that stuff, but it's also about great teaching, right? And that great teaching isn't necessarily, okay, I have curriculum and I have to impart it on you and test you and then send you on your merry way. It's about caring about the person who's in front of you, right? And making sure that they're brave enough to figure out who they are, discern their gifts, and being brave enough to take those next steps. And maybe you can remember your favorite teacher. Do you remember your favorite teacher? You have somebody in mind? So I got to say thank you to mine. So I called Mr. Matson and I said, "Mr. Matson, I don't know if you remember me, but and he said, "Oh, I do remember." And he referred to this project. Mr. Matson was the teacher. Most teachers told me to stop doodling in school. Do we have any artists here in the room? We have one. Okay, that was a trick question because you're hanging out with the guy who wrote the dot. All right, you are actually all now you're artists, right? Because I told you because my friend Pete Reynolds told me I'm an artist. There's a polite term for you people who didn't raise your hand, and you can repeat after me. I am an artistically challenged adult. All right, and so Mr. Matson was his math class. I was doodling in his class, and he said, "Peter, I want to talk to you after class." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm busted again," you know, because most teachers would say, turn the page over. You know, you could do that after school, do that after class. So we had this conversation. He said, Peter, I would love it if you would pay attention to my math class. And he said, even if it's just to find out why I'm interested in that. And he said, if you do that for me, I'll let you do a special project. Look through the math textbook and see if there was a concept, if there's a concept in there that you could teach to another student. And I'm thinking, and he said, using your art and your storytelling. And I'm thinking, okay, wait a second, I'm not in trouble. And my math teacher just mentioned art and storytelling in the same sentence as math. Now, nobody had done that before. And the other cool thing is that my math teacher asked me to teach. No other teacher had said, Peter, be a teacher. And I didn't realize how hard that is, right? It's really hard to be a teacher. And that's kind of what we're doing tonight, right? We're asking you to be teachers. To take some nugget, it's either a piece of wisdom or a fact or a method or some tip your grandmother gave you on how to butter toast. You're going to take that and you're going to share it with other people. When I went home and I made a comic book, being, you know, I was 12 years old, 7th grade. I came back in, I showed Mr. Matson my comic book. And he looked at it. And by the way, Mr. Matson he wasn't exactly Robin Williams in Dead Poets Society. A little bit more like, have you seen Ferris Bueller? And don't tell Mr. Matson I said that. But I say it only because it's remarkable that he challenged me to do this project. And when I brought my comic book in to show him, he took a look at it and very quietly said, do you know what you've done? I said, I made a comic book. He said, yeah, it's a comic book, but it's also called a storyboard. It's a plan, it's the way that a filmmaker uses, plans out their film is a storyboard. So he said, how would you like to make an animated film based on this story? So I like burst into flames at this point. I'm so excited. And he's like, I actually don't know how to make one. And that is cool, right? A great teacher has the idea first, you figure it out later. And in fact, it's the figuring out that is the lesson. My teacher showed me that you cannot know something and that you can find out, right? Because there are wonderful, brilliant people out there. And as luck would have it, at the high school, there was a media teacher who was an animator, cartoonist, a game designer, and he looked like a young version of Albert Einstein to boot. He was just a cool guy. And he helped us make an animated film. So my teacher actually learned alongside me how to make an animated film. So it's kind of cool because I became a teacher and he became a student. Pretty cool. So, anyways, flash forward. Thanks to Mr. Matson challenging me to make a film. And so age 12, I made my very first animated film to teach. And here I am today. I have a company called FableVision with my twin brother. And stories at the heart of it. And we want people to be brave. And we did notice this kind of sad little thing that when, like, if I go into kindergarten classes, I'm like, who here's an artist? Of course, right? All the hands go up. First grade, all the hands go up. Second grade, most of the hands go up. Third grade, half the hands go up. And depending on the culture of the school, I go into 4th and 5th grade. I say, okay, do we have any artists out there? And they'll point. They'll say, Eric. You know, he's an awesome artist, right? We're in Boston. He's a wicked good artist. And I think how sad. It only took about 600 days for most of these kids to fold up those fabulous, creative, brave wings, and they sort of tuck them back there. And it takes decades to get them unfolded. And if you ever notice retired people, a lot of time, the first thing they do, I think I'll take an art course. I'll dabble in some oil paints. So our mission is to say, don't put the pencil down. Don't put the paintbrush down. Make us a promise to keep going, right? Make a mark every day. And that's what I do. I promise myself I will make a mark every single day. And I have books I read, but I also have blank journals. And I promise myself every night before I go to sleep, I will make at least, I'll write something, a poem, a drawing. And one night I fell asleep with my marker on the page. And probably a good hour went by because when I woke up, this tiny little dot had turned into a big dot. I threw the journal to one side, went back to sleep, woke up in the morning and the light was shining through the window and it fell upon my journal. And I looked at the journal and I saw this big dot. And I looked at it and I'm like, that's a pretty cool looking dot. And I took my marker and I wrote The Dot by Peter H. Reynolds. And that became the touchstone for that, for the book, The Dot. So that's my other message to you too, is that your best ideas are going to come from the most unexpected places, and that your mistakes might be your genius. So don't be hard on yourself. Be kind, because the world's a tough place, right? So you might as well start with yourself, right? Be kind to your ideas, honor them, and jot them down, you know? Don't let those great ideas disappear. So today we're gonna try to take some of those fabulous ideas and we're gonna plunk them on paper. We're also gonna plunk them on Bloom software as well. We're going to try to encourage you to kind of press fast forward on this idea. Has anyone here written a story? I'm just curious, have you written, I mean, you've probably written some stories in school, but has anyone published anything yet? It's
not a story, but
yeah. How many people here would like to be published? You walk into Barnes & Noble and you see your book on the shelf? Yeah. Let me tell you, it is a pretty cool feeling. And for me to be able to go into, my books are in many, many languages, which is very appropriate for today because we're talking about having a conversation with the planet Earth, right? You think about it. When my book, I write it in English, but it gets translated in over 25 languages. So I can actually have a chat with someone in China and Belgium and South Africa. And the cool thing is that you all can jump into that into that pool with us. So we're going to kind of throw you in the deep end. Normally, if we had a week-long session, we would gently go into the shallow end and wait a little bit. But we're going to just woo, right into the deep end. So before we get into the actual jumping in, did you have something?
What's our time check? Are we trying to just to shift?
We have about an hour and 15 minutes.
To do the brainstorming as well?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll come to
Yeah.
to come to landing on this piece, like within the next 5 minutes, and then we're going to
Yeah.
transition and do a little bit of brainstorming, right? Hopefully, we're just showing you examples of what we do. Our invitation is to inspire you to be brave enough to find that idea and share it with the world. So, so it's all about story, and it's all about activated story. I'm just going to tell a little bit about this because this is important to us. So there's story. A story can just sit there and know you can write your story, and nobody ever has to read it, and it will only have changed you. And that's pretty cool. If you get your story out, that you've done something that a lot of people will never have done. So just start there, right? But it's kind of cool when you can actually move to activated story. Here's an example of story activation. There's a teacher in Iowa who read the book The Dot to his class. And one of the bright, smart kids looked at some of the back matter and noticed the publishing date was September 15th, 2003. And this astute child asked Mr. Shea, is that the birthday of the book? And Mr. Shea said, I don't know. How are you going to find out? And the kids all got together and they went on this quest through Peter's agent and then through the publisher. Somehow they got to meet. And Peter sent the message back, sure, that's an awesome day, September 15th. That's awesome. So they all, September 15th, they actually started making dots. Well, that was 2009. When we heard that there were 17,500 teachers and kids, but I think this is in 2011, had found Mr. Shea's crazy Google Doc form on his website, school website, and took the time to fill it out, we knew something was going on. And it turns out, as the years have gone by, the numbers just keep increasing. So we got involved that year, and it jumped to 850,000. This year, oh, no, this was an old slide, actually. It used to be 4.4 million. This year we went over 7 million in 143 countries. Where kids all around the world, all ages, kids, pre-service teachers, staff, faculty at universities are making dots. And you check out the Facebook page, International Dot Day Facebook page. I'd say I get dot fever starting in August all the way through September, and it dissipates. I start thinking clearly again around October, because we get photographs like this all the time and videos being posted.
I think we have over 10,000 likes on Facebook, and it's super active educator sharing. And we have a .day activity guide. If you go to the .club.org, this is the Reynolds Center, a nonprofit, handles all this. It's all free. All the digital resources, all free. Certificates, posters in multi-language, and so story and story activation. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but this is just an example of sometimes people will come to us. Partnership for 21st Century came to us and commissioned us to do a story because they were trying to tell the story of the 4 C's. Folks here probably know, right? The 21st Century skills, 18 skills in the framework. Apparently that was too many for people to remember. So they spent another 2 years to try and figure out if you could pick 3 or 4 of the most important ones, what would they be? They picked communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity. Peter and I like to add the 5th C, which is compassion, because we think without compassion, all these other things can actually be put to not great use. But their struggle was at P21, stop just telling each other in PowerPoints and white papers at conferences. We have to get the word out that these things are really important. How could FableVision create a story that would help them get there? So I'm not going to play the actual film. It's online, but it's a film called Above and Beyond. You can YouTube this, and it's a little story, allegory about...
It was a warm spring morning down at the Main Street schoolyard. Excitement was in the air. Hey, check this out, said Charlie. The school's Golden Places contest has been announced. Come on.
And that's all I'm going to show you. So, the cool thing is, so we did the film, and they were really excited because in 4.5, 5 minutes, we got to tell the essence, deliver the essence, not the details of the 18 skills, but just the essence. So check it out online, it's all free. Simon Schuster saw it, and they picked it up. And this is kind of a good message for all of you that your editors will probably sit down with you at some point and make changes, like they changed the name of the... They didn't change it, they asked us to consider a name change. That's always a delicate process, right? But our editors were really smart, and it turns out they were right. It won the Library of Congress Mass Book Award for Best Picture Book of the Year last year. So something's going on. It's won a bunch of other awards. We dedicated this one to our 10th grade social studies teacher who dared us to have original ideas. And that was my story of he blew my mind in 10th grade. I had no idea he was telling the story about. He graduated from college and was in sheer panic that he had never had an original idea in his life. And I wasn't sure what he meant by that. And it took me, a few years to kind of parse through that, but I always remembered that to challenge me to have an original idea. It's kind of cool because we challenge kids to have original ideas. We challenge you guys to let your original, not to have them, but just to share them, right? Everybody has original thinking, but it's being brave enough. There's this a classroom in North Carolina that just did a book project using the Get Published software, and they're all showing off their books. And we're going to wrap this part for the talk by just talking about Peter's favorite book. And you have your second favorite book.
My second all-time favorite book is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. Anybody read it? Yeah, pretty awesome, right?
Yeah.
So we own a bookstore, by the way, in Dedham, Massachusetts, not too far from here. So if you want to have a field trip, come see our bookstore. Our town did not have a bookstore. We thought that was a sad thing. So we said we'll open one. So that was 14 years ago now. So.
Blues on E in Dedham Square.
So it's packed with our favorite books and all the new cool books that are coming out, and we'll probably house your book too.
We do great book events, so when you want to launch your book, come to us. We really make it a party. So.
But kids often ask me what my favorite book is, so I tell them that this is my favorite book because I love the cover. And we don't have time to read the whole thing, but this is how it starts. And there's this awesome, cool double-page spread here. And do we have any librarians in the room? Oh, yes, yeah. So I know I'm not supposed to show you the last page, how it ends, but we don't have time to read the thing. So I show this to kids and they're like looking at me like I've got two heads. They're like, but there's nothing there, it's blank, what's that? But I kind of just, and try this if you work with kids, try it because it is universal. I've done this in Australia and Methuen. It's kind of fun to keep going, and then suddenly you'll hear some kids say, "Oh, I see it." You know, then you might hear, "Oh, it's polar bear in a snowstorm," which is cute, you know. But then they're getting into it. Wow, oh yeah, it's awesome, and I'm like, why is this my favorite book? Why is it so awesome? And that starts a really great conversation because kids are like, well, you could have my art. You know, I could put my ideas, my story. I could put stories and words. Maybe it could be my own book. And then eventually some kid will say, it really could be anything. And I'm like, that's pretty awesome, right? It could be anything. I'm like, this is actually kind of your life, right? Every day when you wake up, you're blessed enough to have another page in your book. And you can let someone else write your story, or you can write your story. And if you have control over that story, you can actually tell a pretty good story, right? You are going to be a hero, right? Because if I wrote your story, I don't know. I don't know what you're thinking and dreaming. So, so the blank book is a pretty powerful symbol. And I look at it like a swimming pool, right? The water is great, you know, dive in. And I want everyone to experience the joy of seeing something blank and getting excited. So I wrote, for those of you who are a little bit nervous about drawing and writing, I wrote a book called Ish, which is the sequel to The Dot. So if you have a chance, your library actually has a copy of Ish.
They're for sale outside.
Oh, and they're for sale too. And The Dot and Ish and Sky Color are part of the Create Trilogy, and I really designed them to help. The Dot is to kind of get you started, and Ish is to help you keep going and realize that your style of writing and your style of art is actually pretty cool, right? You can tell the whole world to back off, right? If you want to draw a tiger that way, and people are like, and you're like, it's tiger-ish, right? It's your version of a tiger. And I would use that when I was working with kids, and when kids were getting nervous and they were erasing their stuff, I'm like, what? And this one boy actually in Maine said, he was erasing his beautiful tiger, and I said, why are you erasing this? And he said, oh, it's supposed to be a tiger, but it doesn't look like one. And I said, it's tiger-ish. And he whipped his head around, and he smiled, and he's like, tiger-ish? And I'm like, yeah, it's your version of a tiger. And all the kids gathered around, they started showing me their art. They're like, this monkey-ish, you know, snake-ish. And I'm like, that worked. That worked. And so I just quickly, not that I thought it would be a story, I just knew that would be a very useful tool for kids if I'm teaching kids and getting them to relax. The word ish worked. And so if you're a teacher, you're going to have those moments, right? Because there's what they teach you in school on how to teach, and then there's what you learn on the front line. And you're going to have, I call it accidental brilliance. And your accidentally brilliant moments, make sure you capture them. Because not only will it help you, but how cool is it that a book could scale that idea out? And you could actually help. It's like if you're trying to explain somebody what osmosis is, right? And you're like, oh, I got a great metaphor. Why not share that with the world? Because your 30 kids will benefit, but why not 125 million kids? So, so it's exciting, the blank book. I hope you're getting kind of warmed up here to dive in, because we're going to make a book, right?
And I think Boston College storytellers are going places, don't you think?
I do.
Yeah, I think they are. And I think there's one part of this whole thing, right? You're going to do some animation, you're going to do some cards.
It depends on timing. So we're going to have to teach you how to use the software, right? So there's some software, and this is the software that magically makes your story bloom in many languages. So that's our high tech. We also, I think you may have gotten some low tech tools too, right?
We'll pass them out.
Yeah. This is actually my method, and there are lots of methods for creating a story. But the way I start is just I go to CVS and I buy myself a bunch of these note cards. And why I keep them as note cards is that I can kind of scratch my idea down, and I basically make a film in my head, and then I just storyboard my film. And I describe what's happening in my film. I'm not writing the story, if you kind of catch my drift, right? I'm just describing what's happening. Because if you try too hard, you might gum up the works, and you get stuck on page 2. And I use very few words, that's my style, but especially in this scenario that we're going to crash out a book quickly, probably less is more today. And the cool thing is that you can always add, if one page doesn't make sense, tomorrow you can always like switch it out for the one that does. These are kind of powerful tools, so you're getting one of my secret weapons, you know. Secret tools.
And we're going to say this a bunch of times. Tonight is where you make your mark. It's going to be one dot maybe, even if it's just one awesome idea that you have, and it doesn't even get realized in the software and everything. It's really okay. This is just getting you plugged in and connecting the dots with fellow storytellers, okay? So don't stress out. You have the rest of your life to write this story for multiple stories, okay?
So in just a minute, we'll move to another stage. We'll start talking about the software.
And the cool thing is the software is available to you after tonight.
Right.
So this is kind of just a tutorial to get your hands on what the dashboard looks like, and you have a long time to finish your books.
We don't expect we're going to have a perfect book by the end of our time here together, but our hope, as Peter and Paul,
It'll be bookish.
Bookish, exactly. So Graham, if you can help, so everyone's going to want to pick the basic book template, and you've got an extra tricky job because he can't actually see his computer screen. He's yep, and you're gonna pick this template, the one that just has a flower on top, and edit this book. So once you pick the basic book template, there's default pages that come with every single book, your front cover, your back cover, your title page, credit pages. All of our books we're hoping to create using the Creative Commons license in the spirit of sharing, so that all of the books that we create and produce can be shared, uploaded, downloaded, and eventually translated into other local languages so that kids can read all over the world. Do you have a title for your book?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. So Graham, what you're going to do is you're going to go down here to the bottom left hand and add a page. So there's a big plus sign, bottom left hand corner that Graham's selecting. And we've got all of these custom pages right here. The flowers, as Graham and Becky can tell us, flowers are images. The text box are for your story, your text. And you can select any of those icons to create a book. You can also change it later, so and just add this page on the bottom right. Perfect. So with that, Graham, you can start writing your very first page of your book. So as he's doing that, I'll show, you can go for it. So you start typing, and I'm going to keep talking. So you're able to customize the layout. You can add extra text boxes. You can add additional images. There are features in this software that, for our teachers in the room, when we need to create a leveled or decodable book, if the child has not learned that sight word yet or hasn't learned that letter, it will not let you type it in. We're not in that feature right now because we're just being creative and writing our story. But this software has that feature, which is really critical for our purposes. It also makes you write in the same font and same font size. Because research shows us that kids don't want to read in all different types of fonts. We need some uniformity in what we're doing. What else? Are there any questions so far? No? Okay. Another unique feature about this software is you can record audio over sentences. So maybe Graham later tonight or this weekend will want to record audio to go with his story. That's the next step of the project. There's a whole repository after Graham finishes typing. It can show you how to add some illustrations. The creators of the software, an organization called SIL-LEAD, they started as a faith-based organization that has been translating Bibles in 80 plus countries, for 80 plus years in countries all over the world. And they know that there's 7,000 plus living languages all over the world. So we've used their expertise to develop this software that's letting us create the number of books that we need in local languages. Now this software, just to be extra clear, because I've heard some questions about this, the software does not do the translation for you. It's not a Google Translate software, but it allows you, it offers soft suggestions for what it might be in a different language. You need to have some basic understanding of the language in order to actually...
Or find a buddy who speaks that local
Or
language.
find a buddy, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Feel free to keep working in your groups as we're doing this. It really sort of is as simple as it works as it looks. In addition to, there's an illustration repository that includes 10,000 plus line drawings that this same organization still lead. They sent out missionaries all over the world to do line drawings of remote villages and children that don't necessarily look like me, but are more interesting for a child in Malawi or Honduras to read about. You can also upload pictures on your phone. You can pull pictures down from the internet and add them as well.
Or you can draw pictures.
Or you can draw, absolutely.
Sorry.
Yes.
Add page. Okay.
Add page. So then
Awesome.
you want to let's show how to do add a drawing. So pick a page with a flower
And you
on
don't
it.
have to pretend
That's
like
okay.
an illustration. Create a series.
Yep, go for it. That sounds great. So in order to add a page, you're going to go to the flower in the top right-hand corner.
That would be
Yep, that one. Change image. So Art of Reading is the built-in illustration repository that you can select. Hit that one. Yep, exactly. So once you've selected that, then you can type in anything in your book. As hopefully you can see, the software is pretty easy to use. There are also, again, we don't expect you to be able to finish your book tonight, but you can go home, go to bloomlibrary.org. There are additional training videos there to go over some of the more advanced features of the software. You'll have to, in order to access your book, if you start one tonight, you're going to have to go to that publish icon on the top left-hand corner. You add it to the repository. It doesn't have to be a perfect finished book. There's not that many books up there yet. And then when you're ready to work on it again, can you hear me back there? And when you're ready to work on it again, just pull it down off the website and start again. It's fairly easy. Yeah.
So we have about 30 minutes to plug away on this and work on either your cards or on your computer or whatever. Feel free to spread chairs around or push away or get up and get some fruit. Did I mention the fruit? Get some fruit to nourish your soul and your creativity. And we'll kind of give you a 5-minute warning or so. But in about 30, you have about 30 minutes to make the magic happen. Okay? 30 minutes to begin the magic. So talk amongst yourselves.
There are different ways to kind of get at it.
Don't know where it's going to be. But I think just... David, nice try.
So we're coming in for a landing, but we know we're not done yet. This is not the end. This is the beginning, right? And we want to, Peter and I both want to let you know, if we didn't say it individually, that we have connected the dots, and you are our kindred spirits. If you are crazy enough to believe that the power of story positive storytelling can change the world, then stick with us. And if you don't have a twin, we'll be your twins for you. Right? Triplets.
Yeah. And I am amazed, actually. I mean, when I was looking at the clock, I'm like, oh my gosh, how are we going to pull this up? I'm amazed at how many fabulous ideas bloomed today. And
Anybody want to share a title of your book? Yeah?
Sure. Mine's called Running to Friendship.
Running to friendship. Running to friendship. Oh, that's cool.
And I read this. It's fabulous. It's
Do I win a
wonderful. Yeah.
prize?
Yeah. Interesting. Funny you should say that. Why don't we just if anybody else wants to share their idea for a story or the name, yeah, back there.
I wrote a little book about the world. Yeah, I used the note cards and just kind of stapled it together. It's like a little rhyming book about becoming friends with people all over the world.
I read
Awesome.
it, and I honestly, I absolutely love it, and I think it speaks to everything that we talked about today. And I'm serious about it. I mean, you shared it in a kind of a very funny way, but it is it's a very touching story, and I can't wait for you to upload it and share it with the world. It's awesome.
Anybody else want to be brave enough to share?
Mine is called Home, and it's about. Sorry, mine is called Home, and it's about an immigrant student who realizes that there's no place that really fully feels like home unless you find one that you make your home.
So going off of that topic, mine was, I would thinking about it in Spanish, cuento por uno, cuento por dos, I count for one and count for two. With the story of like being in your country and then getting on a plane and you're one, and you get on the plane and you become two, because you learn a different country, you learn different language, different culture, and if you learn even more, you become three, and so on.
That's cool.
That's fun.
Yeah.
So apparently this is a common theme. I don't know why we're all
Well, it's
thinking about
called
immigration, but so mine's the story of two kids who are starting their first day at school, and one of them is just moved to the United States, and one of them has all of her friends, and they connect over art.
Love those.
Yeah, awesome. Let's see if we have one in the back, and we'll jump
We
to
did
you.
a collaborative effort.
Yes,
and
our
it's-
co-authors.
Yeah, co-authors. It's either working title, Where's My Water, or Why Won't My Water Come? It's about a little boy who's growing up in a family of water benders, for lack of a better word. And as he grows up, he's not able to bend water. And so he's going to try to use the techniques of his entire family. And finally, he finds out that he's a fire. He can do fire. And he's like his great-grandpa.
Wow, that is awesome. Fantastical journey. I see it filmed in large screen, epic, waiting to happen. We have to just quickly do a few more.
Mine's about an elephant who gets lost from her family, and she meets another human child, and they become friends, and it's just kind of just like helping the elephant find her family and get back where she belongs.
Awesome. That's awesome. And it's great, that idea of introducing a conflict right up front, right? And the rest of your story is trying to untie the knot that you tied as the author. Awesome. One more in the back.
Mine's called Alex's Grumpy Day. It was inspired by my nap today. I had a really good dream, and then I woke up and it was raining. And kind of the moral of the story is that you can do anything you set your mind to.
Wow.